their purpose, create a vision, create, again, like, being a mindset coach, just helping people put a blueprint together and just start stacking positive habits and getting in place so that you can take incremental action in the pursuit of your goal. Welcome to the Level Up Ministries podcast. My name is Joey Bonfiglio.
And I'm Sandy Bonfiglio. Thank you so much for tuning in. So all of our podcasts are all about leveling up. Leveling up our minds, our relationships, our health, our faith. Last week's podcast was called A Still Small Voice. We encourage you to go back to those episodes that we've already done to hear that content as we move forward. But today's podcast is all about discovering our gifts. So Joe, in your book, How to Build a Level Up Mindset, you talk about hockey and how important hockey has been in your life. And so how has hockey played a part in you discovering your gifts?
Yeah, I think, last episode I kind of talked about like when I was stuck in my job and a lot of things were going on in my life during that time. And, it was interesting where I was trying to reflect back on, one of the things that when I was going through that personal growth was, Steve Harvey talking about using your gifts to serve others and finding your gifts. And it took me a while to reflect. I was kept going back to that video and watching it repeatedly and going, okay, well, what's my gift? I was, asking out, like, what is it? What is it? And I think I was just so far removed. It should have been very obvious to me, but it wasn't because I hadn't been using those. And it took me back to when I was 12 years old, and I had kind of mentioned it, where I took the videos that my dad had recorded of all the games that I had played in youth hockey, and I had made, an ESPN type highlight video and showed that to my friends, and that in the excitement of my friends watching it, and we had won a couple state championships too, so it was like this collage of video clips that I set to music, and it was, and I think, and the other thing too was supposedly, your gifts are the things that come easiest to you with or at least the least amount of effort that you enjoy doing. And so for me, as I started to reflect and go through that, and I think I had mentioned, like, I was planking, but I was watching, motivational YouTube videos with different speakers, whether it was Steve Harvey, Ed Milet, David Goggins, the voiceovers with video images of, people working out or, and it was like, oh, then it clicked. It was like, oh, I used to make videos like that with my hockey, with my dad's hockey tapes. And so from that point on, I said, okay, I could use, that's my gifting. And I had, at the time I was working for Lego too, and I had made a video I was trying to, pitch them this new sports theme. And so I had taken video footage from, the NFL, the NHL, and put another collage together to make this hype reel. And my friend had made these digital renders of athletes that looked like Lego figures, because I was trying to, pitch this idea, and that's what kind of sparked the, oh yeah, I used to, between this and the videos I was making, for my friends when I was in high school and college, I said, oh, that's my gift. How can I use this to serve others and kind of get out of my funk? And but again, it was like that, that's my gifting. And fast forward to right now, where I'm trying to help other people in their walk and their personal growth, and even here it's like, here we're making video content. This it's like, I'm in my gifting right now, as a creative, if you will, and just whether it's making the thumbnails for videos or creating my own videos for personal development, so yeah.
That's great. I love how you talk about how you started those videos when you were 12 years old, because I have heard that whatever you do in your free time as a child, that normally that is part of your gifting, that's what you love to do. So I think back to when I was little, and I'm thinking I was probably like, I don't know, 10, 11 years old, And we lived in this one-story house that had this awesome basement that was, it was cement, but there was a part of it was a little kitchen, a little kind of dining room, living room area. But on the other side was just a cement floor. And I remember putting on my roller skates and roller skating in that area, which I love to do. But then in addition to that, I would set up, and I still have my skates on, but I'd set up all of my teddy bears and my dolls, and I would make worksheets for them, and I'd make all these different activities that I'd want them to do, or I'd set up a game, and I would roller skate, and then I would stop, and I would teach my bears and teddy, my dolls. I would teach them something, and then I would take a break and I would skate around again. I'd go back to them, but essentially, I was using my gift of teaching. So at that young age, in my free time, I was already using my gifting.
Yeah.
And so, I've been fortunate that was just something that when I was in high school, one of my teachers had mentioned to me that they had this opportunity to go and tutor in the city that was near us, and would I like to go and tutor and be a mentor? And it was for community service hours, so I was like, oh sure, I'll go and get some community service hours, not really thinking that it was going to lead to anything, but that's where I really connected with students and realized that teaching might be something that I might love to do. But there was this gap between when I was 10 and 11, between then and this opportunity in high school, where this teacher noticed that that might be a strength of mine and offered this opportunity to me. And that was really when I kind of solidified, like, yeah, that's my gifting, that's what I'm good at, I'm going to pursue this. But it's interesting how typically it starts when we're younger.
Yeah, and well, what's interesting about that too is you use your imagination, when you were a kid. So it was like the imagination of, hey, these dolls are my students, or these teddy bears, and the same for me. It's like I would hear music, or like, again, I grew up in the MTV and ESPN Sports Center highlights were, it was kind of a new thing. So before school, it's like I was watching just highlight videos, and there'd be a little music bed in the background. It was like, oh, I want to be on ESPN one day, and for scoring goals or whatever, because obviously I had an aspiration to be a hockey player. But at the time, the next best thing was like making your own. So, but again, it was like using that imagination and being like, oh, this song, this beat drop, if I if you put this clip here, that clip here. But again, it's all about imagination. And I forget what who talks about it. It's Neville Goddard is big on imagination is power. And that's where at least for me, when I was searching for, what is my gift, it's like, oh, that's what I should be. That's what I should be doing. So, it's definitely an encouragement, like whatever, comes naturally to you, or the thing that you do. And it's not about it, and again, it's not about it being easy. It's not like we're saying, hey, take the easy route. This, you like, this, easy path. We're not saying take the easy path, but it's like, what's that thing that brings you joy, that comes naturally, that you can use to serve other people. And that's really where, to me, it's like if you could find that sweet spot of finding your gift and using it to serve others, it'll bring you a lot of joy, because you're serving your spirit. God gifted you those things. Yeah. He wants you to use those unique gifts, because my gifts aren't your gifts, and your gifts aren't mine, and everyone has something unique out there to share with the world. And the worst thing you could do is go to your grave not using that God-given gift. And and two, and the thing that's difficult too is like, I think for me, where I got sidetracked was, I did go to school for broadcasting and working behind the scenes, and even even in front of the camera, but I didn't get a job in my view quick enough. I didn't wait. I wasn't patient enough. And now I look back, and it was only months. I could, if I waited a little bit longer, I probably would have gotten the opportunity, because where I started at working for a live TV mass, I wasn't getting paid enough. It was like part-time pay. It was a long commute, and we were trying to get married.
Right. Yeah.
And I just wasn't patient enough. And then your aunt was able to get me this other job in a corporate environment that paid very well. And it's like I gave up that dream to go chase this corporate job because I thought the security there was there, so that we can start and raise a family, and it did, and it did until, I got stuck and was like, what am I doing? I put on a lot of weight and wasn't happy and anxious,
Yeah.
and so looking back, it's like, if I just kept pursuing that thing that God put on my heart,
Yeah.
but again, I wouldn't have a story to tell now, and now it's like I feel like, this is my purpose, is to share this with, our generation, but also a younger generation that might be, you know, really not know what to do next,
Yeah.
so.
And sometimes, there are seasons of our life where we need to do a job that might not be within our gifting. But I do think that it's important to have a balance. So, if we're not able to have that opportunity to work in a job that necessarily is completely focused on that gifting, to be using that gift to serve in some other way,
Right.
Whether that's through a church or whether that's, making videos for something else or helping somebody learn how to do that, but at least like using the gift that we have in some means, because that essentially is what brings us joy.
Right.
And so I do remember that, like when you were in your funk, when I think back, I really feel like it came down to you not feeling like you were in purpose,
Right.
and just feeling that pressure of doing something constantly without being fulfilled by using your gift, even if it was somewhere else. You weren't utilizing it at all.
Right.
And so you were just not happy at that point. And now, you're a completely different person. But I do feel like that joy from the Lord came to you once you figured that out and you were able to do that.
Yeah, and what's interesting too is the skills and knowledge I learned throughout those times, I'm also applying now. So it's
Right.
like, so they weren't wasted years either, because I was able to gain other, knowledge in other areas, whether it was IT or marketing or,
Yeah.
what have you. So yeah, definitely not for nothing, for sure,
Sure, sure.
but
And I
yeah.
think back to that experience, and I was teaching at the time, and it really changed my perspective when I sat at meetings with parents. Because I had this experience of just witnessing you and your discovery of trying to find that gifting. And it just made me realize how important it is to find that gifting throughout, kind of your childhood and as you go through school, and for teachers and mentors and parents, and just what a crucial piece that is for us to really even notice, to take time to intentionally notice, oh, he's good at that or she's good at that, and kind of point that out and help lead them, because otherwise it's tough. You get to the end of high school and you're trying to figure out what to do, and it's just like, well, I'll just kind of go there and do this, and you really haven't had that time to think about it, because sometimes you're just going with the flow and you're not really focused on that. But I think there are opportunities where us as parents and other people, can point out and say, hey, you're really good at that.
Yeah. It's that's very important, key. It's interesting because I heard Joe Rogan talking on a podcast years ago when and he was talking about when he graduated high school and how the progression, all his friends went to college, and he was like, I think at the time it's like he didn't go to college like right away, and it's like back in our day, which I think we grew up around the same time, it was like if you don't go to college and you were still in your hometown, it's like you were kind of a loser, and it's like you get that stigma, and then too, like what I was pursuing, which was like really behind the scenes production, I was told it didn't pay well. And I had seen that firsthand even when I got out of production, in broadcasting school. So it was like, again, it's one of those things where I wasn't patient, and then I listened to other people,
Yeah.
of like, oh, well, you can't make a career out of that, and so it's very that it's another lesson of like, who do you listen to, who, and a lot of times, people really are, they're looking out for you, but
Right. It's coming from a good place.
It's coming from a good place, but it's usually coming from a place of their own fear, and they're projecting their fear onto you, unintentionally, and probably they're unaware of it, but and that's where it's so hard to discern, especially when you're growing up and you're trying to figure out your, quote unquote, like life, what am I gonna do, And because I know out of high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I was like, oh, I used to edit videos. Maybe I'll go for production and do this. And but then it took a sidetrack, and now it's coming full circle, and that's where again I just think discovering your gifts, the earlier you can do that, the better you'll be. And again, even if you're in a job that's you're not using your gifts, at least if you're using your gifts on the side, there's that you need that you need that break away from your job or whatever that is, if you're not being fulfilled there, so whether that's service or what have you. So
so what are your intentions just moving forward with this gift that God has given you? Like, what do you foresee doing with it?
Well, that's a great question. Well, again, like I feel like I'm in my purpose now, and again, creating videos and to help others, get unstuck or find their purpose, create a vision, create, again, like being a mindset coach, just helping people put a blueprint together and just start stacking positive habits and getting in place so that you can take incremental actions in the pursuit of your goals and vision. So really it's to serve other people through creative content.
Yeah, awesome. I know you have your master class that you've also created that's out there to help people as well. And
and that was a fun, it was definitely time consuming, but it was like I really wanted to make it creative and not just be this lecture of hey, these are the things you have to do, so I put some creative elements in it too to make it so entertaining a little bit too, just a fun way to level up.
Now going back to just hockey, and just thinking about you being a hockey player, what was one of your greatest hockey moments?
Well, it's funny, especially talking about production. So, I was so fortunate that my dad videoed so many of my games, whether it was youth, whether it was high school, and some college games, and I just had a lot of them digitized. And but the one, I was fortunate enough to score the game-winning goal in overtime when I was a peewee, when I was 14 years old, and my dad had caught it on tape, and it was just funny because he was the team we played, West Hartford, during the regular season. They beat us all. Well, we played them 4 times, and I think they beat us 3 times, and we tied them once. But we played them in the state championship game, so but I didn't realize. So my dad was, when he was videoing, he was sitting on the visitors' side because he was friends with one of the West. He worked with one of the West Hartford parents. So here I score this epic like game-winning goal in overtime to win the state championship, and my dad was like, just like, my son, like he was very cool, because he was with another parent. But it's just so for that's what you visualize when you're a kid. When you're growing up and you're shooting the puck and playing with your friends, or you're just playing street hockey by yourself and just practicing. You always have that in the back. You want to win the Stanley Cup, but unfortunately I didn't make the NHL. So scoring the game-winning goal in overtime to win the.
Close.
Close enough for me. I mean, it doesn't get, so it's kind of cool. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we just really want to encourage you to take some time to think about your giftings, especially if you're stuck, especially if you're in a place in your life where you just can't see the joy. We just encourage you to take time to think about what is that thing that you just enjoyed doing when you were younger. When you could use your imagination, or when you just had free time. What was that you did or what do you enjoy doing that takes the least amount of effort that you're able to do? And maybe start doing that. And again, if it's not for a full-time job, maybe it's just being able to serve at your church and doing that, or just do it in your home and teach one of your children a skill that you have that you enjoy. But finding those gifts will truly fill you when you start to walk in them. And so we just want to encourage you to find those, and to also encourage others around you when you see their gifting, to really point that out to them, because sometimes it is hard to see. And so we just encourage you to do that. And we just thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Take care.